Thank you. It's great to be here with you to celebrate Israel's 75th birthday together and to talk a little bit about the state of the world. I'm the president of Friends of ELNET, and ELNET, like AIPAC in the United States, works on strengthening Israel's relations with Europe in the belief that the Western camp needs to stay together and stay united. And I'd like to begin by talking about the state of the world that we're in today. There are three major points of conflict in the world. Obviously, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Iran's nuclear program, hegemony in the Middle East, and upgraded strategic relations both with Russia and China, which is changing the Middle East and the region, and of course the threat in the Far East and the growing friction between the United States and China. So we're not in a one-dimensional world anymore. We're not in a unipolar era of Pax Americana anymore. And this is a world that we were used to because this is a world that Israel was born into 75 years ago, certainly after the Cold War. So over the last 4 decades, it was Pax Americana, but we're now in a much more dangerous, much more demanding strategic environment that is important to understand. 3 major global crises in a multipolar world, with the United States facing 2 revisionist powers, both Russia and China, in different parts of the world. The perception of declining American influence in the Middle East is very real. It's been ongoing for several years, and it's having a greater impact on strategic stability and the changes that we see in the Middle East. ELNET was born 15 years ago out of a concept that Israel needs to compete. Israel needs to be much more robust and proactive in its relationships with the world. Most people think that it's about Israel, America, and everyone else. Well, everyone else is becoming a very, very significant part of the strategic challenge that we all face, including the United States. So we believe that the world is divided into 3 camps: the pro-West camp, the anti-West camp, and the swing countries that used to be called the non-aligned that are up for grabs. And we need to compete and be innovative and proactive and agile as a small power. That is Israel, that's our history, and that's also our future. And to be agile, we need allies, and we need to understand the reality around us. So let's look at Europe. Europe is right in proximity to Israel. Europe, together with the United States, is the core of the Western world. It is 20 minutes from Israel, starting from Cyprus and moving on north. And there is an Iranian threat in Europe. It's been there for years, together with ISIS. But this is a map of the countries where Iran, Hezbollah have had cells, have been chasing dividends, threatening Israeli tourists, Jewish targets as recently as this Passover in Greece. These are the countries, this is what it looks like. And these are the countries that banned Hezbollah in Europe. 1/3 of the continent today does not allow Iran or its proxy to operate politically in these countries. You know about Iran working with Russia in sending killer drones to kill Ukrainian civilians every day of the week. You may not know the following, that Iran is building industrial factories both in Russia and in Belarus to manufacture these killing drones in the heart of Europe. So we have a convergence between Europe and Israel in terms of the strategic threats that we face. And think about Russia in the Middle East, Iran in Europe, China moving into the Middle East. We're in a changed world. We need to understand it, and we need to build coalitions and make sure that Israel is competing in this world today. This is what Europe and Israel do together. The United States is not Israel's largest trading partner. The United States is not Israel's largest defense export market. Europe is. The relationship between Israel and Europe on trade is enormous. The relationship on innovation and R&D is enormous. The Europeans occupy powerful positions in world diplomacy, including in the Security Council of the United Nations, veto holders. There are 1 million Jews that still live in Europe. And you just heard in our previous panel the importance of fighting anti-Semitism together and some of the concerns about what is happening here in the United States. Well, 30 European countries have adopted IRA officially without watering it down. And that is very, very significant, because having governments working with the Jewish world, working with Israel to fight anti-Semitism is incredibly important. Now, war in Europe means that the Europeans are waking up and they're understanding the importance of national security considerations and understanding Israel's motivations more than ever before. You've heard about Germany's interest in purchasing Israel's Arrow 3. Well, I'm going to share with you something very significant, because Germany isn't alone. Germany runs or oversees a network of 17 other NATO and European countries called the European Sky Shield Initiative. 17 of those countries may in the future be part of the Arrow 3 missile defense system for Europe. So if you think about the vision of a multipolar world, of Israel needing to compete proactively and adroitly in a world full of dangers, having allies all over Europe connected to Israel, embedding Israel in the security architecture of Europe and vice versa, is incredibly important for our future. Of course, the energy cooperation between Israel and Europe, you've heard about this year as a result of the energy crisis, is increasingly important, and bringing Israel and the Abraham Accords to Europe and European diplomatic and economic muscle into helping us change the Middle East, stabilize the Middle East. You heard today the vision of Ron Lauder about a Marshall Plan for the Middle East. These are all the concepts that we need to continue to develop, and having Europe right there as part of the Western camp, working with Israel and Arab allies to change our strategic environment, is becoming increasingly more urgent and more important. ELNET is very focused on the world picture and on the future of the Europe-Israel relationship. We are particularly excited about Eastern and Central Europe. This is an enormous group of countries which may in the future include a militarized Ukraine, Scandinavia, the Baltic countries, and Eastern Europe from north to south that feels a kinship with Israel. There are challenges. We know anti-Semitism. We know the history, which means we need to double down and do more. But these are the countries that are naturally aligned with Israel. And what ELNET is doing as the largest pro-Israel network in Europe is to work with all of these countries. These are all new programs from 2023. You'll see that we have a NATO dialogue. Right now in Israel, as we speak, we have the first regional delegation of government leaders from all over Central and Eastern Europe that are in Israel to learn about missile defense, resilience, national security, border security, PTSD, and how to deal with the problems and the crisis of the war in Europe that isn't going away and probably will not go away for many, many years to come. So today I'm announcing the opening, we're announcing the opening of the new ELNET Eastern European office, which will be called ELNET-CEE, Central and Eastern Europe, which will better connect Israel and the countries of Eastern and Central Europe that are natural allies of Israel for the future and natural allies of the Jewish people. We'll be taking them to Morocco, to the Abraham Accord summits. We'll be involving them in our NATO dialogues. And to sum up, the takeaway that I'd like all of you to think about is that we're not in a flat world. We're not only in a world that relates to Israel and America. We're in a very dynamic, challenging world where America is torn between the East and the West, and Israel will have to build its own capacity together with the United States and other Western allies in order to prosper, survive, and strengthen itself in the very challenging future world that we all will face together. So thank you very much.